Masechet Baba Batra, Daf Kof Aleph. We saw in previous Mishnayot that if someone sells to someone else a piece of land for a certain purpose, like to build a small house or a big house, then the plot of land and the house that he builds has to be a certain size. And now we're going to apply that to a topic that came up just before, which is cemeteries. Hamocher makom lachavero lasot lo kever, v'chen mekabel mechavero lasot lo kever. Oseh tocha shel me'ara arba amot al shesh. If someone sells to someone else a plot of land in order to make a cemetery there, or if someone hires a contractor to build a place of burial. Place of burials back then was not directly in the ground like we do today, but rather in a cave. It could be a natural cave that one finds, but here we're actually talking about a cave that one builds into the bedrock underground. And so the room where one puts the bodies, you'd put several bodies in holes in the wall. You can see in this picture, there's a hole in the wall. So this would be the room that has to be at least 4 by 6 amot. And then within the walls all around, one would make holes in order to bury the bodies within those holes. So that's the standard size. Upotech letocha shemona kuchin, shalosh mikan v'shalosh mikan u'shnayim mikenegdan, v'kuchin orkan arba amot ve'ruman sheba. And you will have 8 altogether tombs within this cemetery, within this cave, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. Here is a picture. Here's the chamber that's 4 by 6, right? 6 on this side, 4 by this side. And within that, you can fit 8 altogether, 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and 2 on the other side. Each one is 1 amma wide in order to fit the body. And between them, you need an amma of wall to hold the walls up so that it will be strong and not collapse. Now we're going to see in a minute that there's in addition a courtyard that is 6 by 6 and another one of these chambers. So actually you're building a double chamber. Right now we're just focusing on the size and layout of one of these chambers. And so the niches themselves, the individual places where one puts one body, are going to be 4 amot deep, and their height is going to be 7 handbreadths, a little more than an amma, in order to have some extra space on top, which is good for containing tum'ah. Ve'rochban shisha, and the width is 6 handbreadths, which is 1 amma, and so that would fit perfectly. The right 3 of the amot of the 6 are for the actual openings, and you also need walls. You'll have half an amma wall here and half an amma wall on this side, and full amma walls in between each of the openings. All of that is Tanakama. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Oseh tocha shel me'ara 6 amot al shemoneh. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, no, you should make them bigger. You should make each one 6 by 8. And furthermore, you can fit more tombs in there. And then you can have 13 niches within each chamber. Arba mikan ve'arba'a mikan, u'shlosha mikenegdan, ve'echad min hapetach ve'echad min hasemol. So you'll have, as in this picture, 4 on one side, 4 on the other side, and 3 on the opposite wall. And so that would make 8 plus 3 is 11 altogether. And then we still need 2 more. So the language here is a bit ambiguous. It says 1 to the right of the entrance and 1 to the left of the entrance. So we're going to see there's a number of different opinions. But the easiest one to picture is as talking about the diagonal. I mean, it means it's diagonal from the entrance. So towards the right on the diagonal and the left towards the diagonal. And that's how you get to a total of 13 for each chamber that is 6 by 8. So that's the first controversy that we have between Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon. And now we have another controversy. Now everyone agrees regarding the center courtyard that it will be 6 by 6. The reason is because you need to fit the body, that's the coffin, which is 4 amot, plus 2 people carrying it, 1 on each end. So that'll be a total of 6, and you have to be able to maneuver and turn around as you're coming in. There'd be some kind of entrance to the outside, probably stairs that you'd go down, because this would be lower under the ground. And then once you're down there, you'd have to be able to turn and maneuver. So that needs to be at least 6 by 6, as agreed by everyone. Upotech letocha shete me'arot achat mikan v'achat mikan. Rabbi Shimon omer arba le'arba ruchoteha. According to Tanakama, you open two such chambers coming out of the courtyard, one on this side and one on that side. Very good. But according to Rabbi Shimon, he wants to have bigger families all fit in one, and so he says you need four such chambers, which on in all directions. Well, how do you get into it? Well, that's okay. You have stairs, I guess, coming in from above, and you'd have to somehow maneuver so you're not stomping on top of graves. And also here, these are overlapping. How is that going to work? Gemara later will say, obviously, this must mean that they're on different levels. These dark brown ones might be lower down in the ground, and the light ones might be higher up, closer to the ground, so that if they're buried on different levels, that would be okay. Nowadays in Israel, there's not so much space, and multi-level burial is pretty common. And so you see, it was common 2,000 years ago as well. And then we have yet another opinion. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer hakol lefi hasela. This is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, not to be confused with Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. This is a different person. He was a Nasi. And he said, no, you cannot give specific measurements of how many such niches you should have because it depends on the bedrock. If it's very hard, that's good. Then you can build many niches because the walls in between don't have to be so thick. It will stay up. But if the rock is soft, then the walls have to be very thick so that it will stay up and not collapse. And then there's less room for niches. So you can't make one fixed amount. There's an average amount for a certain place, but you have to evaluate with an engineer how many openings you can make so that you have enough room for walls to be safe. Gemara. Hani tere lehecha shadeh lehu. The Gemara is going to focus on these extra two according to the Rabbi Shimon. We understand 4 on one side and 4 on the other, and 3 on this side. That's perfect because this is 8 long. So if you have 8 long, and the niches themselves will take up 4 of those 8, and you need 1 amah in between for a wall, so that's 3 more, and then you have half an amah here, and you still need half an amah on this edge in order to have a wall for this niche. So we're going to see that there's a bit of a problem with this picture because, how exactly are you going to fit it in, this one in the corner, when you will still need a wall all the way till here? Does that really fit? Okay, so the question is, these 2 extra ones, where do you put them? Ile bara'e ha kamitadeshilehu. If they are on the outside, what we mean here is that they are facing outside, meaning when you go to the entrance. So this is the inside and the courtyard is the outside. So in other words, are you going to put them inwards? This is clearer in a picture like this. So with the chamber entrance, imagine that, not like this picture exactly, but let's say this was not on a diagonal, but going straight this way. So technically on this wall, yes, you have room. So you have 4 here, 3, 4. And then on this wall, you could put 1 here and 1 here so that they're going out into the chamber entrance, which would mean in the chamber itself, well, if it was level on the ground, you'd have something sticking out into the chamber, which would be very inconvenient. You wouldn't be able to navigate around there, and also they'd be on top of each other, because if you have another one on the other side and on this side, then they'd be overlapping. So it must be somewhat underground so that you're not tripping over it completely. Okay, so if we say that that's what it's talking about, we have 2 problems. Then you're going to be trampling upon it. Even if it's buried underground, still, it's not respectful to go and step on graves. If you do it in a temporary way, just because you need to get to one burial plot, sometimes today, to bury someone, it's right in between, so you have to step over, you do it carefully. But in this case, it's going to be every time you go in and out, you're necessarily going to be stepping on the graves that are sticking into the courtyard. So that would not be respectful. You wouldn't put them there. And furthermore, Vitu Hatinan, Hasara Kebed Ha'omed Betocho Tahor. We have a Mishnah in Masechet Ohalot that teaches that the courtyard of a catacomb, that's this courtyard over here, if someone stands in there, they do not become Tameh. The reason is because although there are bodies nearby, you don't get Tameh from being near a body, but rather from Tumat Ohels only if it's standing above a body. body. So if you're in here and all the dead bodies are just in these niches, so you are in a separate room and you're not standing on top of any graves. So you still be tahor. You can go there and whatever visit or accompany the mourners. But according to this, if there are graves actually right under the ground and you're standing right on top of them, then the person standing there would in fact become tameh. So it can't be that they're sticking into the courtyard. Therefore, we need another explanation. Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina de'abid lehu kemin neger. Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Chanina, says, oh, you buried them like a door bolt. In other words, vertically. Not like most of our doors where you have the door, the lock in the middle of the door, but some doors we have now, very secure doors, have a lock on the bottom that goes down into the ground. So in other words, you're going to bury the person vertically, feet down, head up, I suppose, and that way it won't jut out. So you can have the same as we did before for these, but for these two, we would just make a deep hole over here and bury the person standing upright, and another one here, and then that would be okay. It wouldn't jut into the courtyard. So that's his opinion. However, we do not accept that. Rabbi Yochanan says to bury a person like that is very disrespectful. That's the burial of donkeys. A donkey, you don't want to have to sit and make a wide hole for the donkey, so you just make a deep hole and put it in. But a human being to bury like that is not nice. You want the person to rest in peace. So resting, you want the person to lie down. And so it can't be that we're burying the person like a door bolt. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, where it says certainly horizontal, it must be that it's at a corner. Okay, now this corner, bekeden zavit, is not clear and is open to interpretation. One interpretation is the picture that we saw before, it means the corners over here, the far corners at a diagonal. But another possibility is as talking about the near corners at a diagonal. So these also would not go into the chamber entrance, which is a rectangle coming off of this, and this is going this way. Or it could be on the diagonal, meaning on the corner, but it's actually a parallel to all of the others. But keren zavit just means it's off the corner. Okay, so all these are possibilities, and the problem that we're about to talk about is that they're going to overlap with the one next door. If there's another chamber, in these it's especially clear. If there's another chamber over here, and this is sticking out this way, and there's another chamber with a niche that's sticking out this way, then they're going to bang into each other. And the same thing with this picture. If there's another entrance here, and this one also has one sticking out this way, it's certainly going to bang into each other. Over here, you don't have that problem, but you have a different, similar problem, which is over here, the opening won't be enough room for the opening because this picture is not quite to scale. See, this corner here is only a half an amma, and there's also only half an amma. So how are you going to fit an amma opening into a corner where it just comes to a close in the corner, and it's very tight in there? This is like in a parking lot. If you try to put your car into the corner space there when there's cars parked right here and right here, right? It's impossible to get in and out. Here you don't have to get out, but you do have to get in at some point. So that's the problem with these. So now we ask, the niches are going to be overlapping, touching each other, and so how can you make it in the corner with whichever interpretation you draw for Rabbi Yochanan? Rav Ashi has an answer that will apply to all of these different opinions. This is Rashbam, this is Migash, this is that of the Reed, and he says you're talking about different levels. One is a deeper, lower level, and one is higher up, and that way they won't bang into each other, right? So it's very easy. You could do that for this also. The one that's on the corner might be lower down, so that lower down you can make a nice wide opening, and it won't interfere with the openings of the other. Or these, you can make one lower and one higher, and that way they won't bang into each other. Good. And we're going to prove that Rav Ashi is correct, because in any case, you have to say that there are different levels, because if you don't say that there are different levels, then the 4 chambers that Rabbi Shimon said, how would you ever make them? Aren't the niches going to bang into each other? Rather, it must be that you are making some deep and some more shallow. That was this picture over here when you have 4 chambers, so for sure, these two are going to overlap, and so it must be that it's on different levels. So this is a good support for Rav Ashi, right? Not so fast. Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua Amar Arba Me'arot l'Rabbi Shimon Tabid lehu ki haruta. Rav Yehuna, the son of Rav Yoshua, says, no, you understood Rabbi Shimon all wrong. What he meant when he said you need 13 is actually like this picture. It's like a lulav. Now, when you open up a palm branch, so it looks kind of like this. And so then you'd have 3 on the outer wall, 3 on the outer wall here also. And then you'd have on this wall 4, and that's what he said. He did say in the Mishnah 4 and 4 and 3, which it is, but the 4 and 4 are actually 2 different chambers, and it's going diagonally out, so that way they don't overlap with each other. So you see, you can fit all 13 in this way. And now, how is he going to have all 4 chambers? It must mean that we'll have 2 more chambers, one on this side, one on that side, with another 13 fanning out on this side. So it wouldn't be that he has 13 times 4 niches. It would be less. So however many it is, you could have just that, or you can fill in another 8 here and another 8 here. But the point is that you can fan out and still have the 13 that he spoke about without any overlapping with each other, so they can all be on the same level. So therefore, this proof for Rav Ashi is not a valid proof, because you could make 13 for Rabbi Shimon without overlapping. And now we ask, V'had Rav Huna b'red Rav Yoshua barutahi. This opinion Rav Huna said in the name of Rabbi Yoshua is baruta, outside. It's an error. We are sending this out as not authoritative. Why? Mikedi kol amita beriboa amita utre chumshe be'alachsona. Now we're going to get into the Pythagorean theorem. Every 1 amma, when you make it into a square, into a diagonal, the diagonal ends up being 1 2/5 amot, right, on the diagonal, which is correct, right? 1 squared plus 1 squared is 2, and the square root of 2 is about 1.4. If we actually take 1.4 and square it, we get 1.96. So it's a little bit less, but the square root of 2 is irrational. So there is no way for the Gemara actually to write it much more accurately. So this is accurate enough. And the point is that the diagonal here is going to be somewhat longer than the horizontal, but not long enough, because let's add it up. In this case, we have 8 times 8 are the sides. And so if we take 8 times 8, we can do this ourselves, is 64. A squared plus b squared, 64 plus 64 is 128. And if we take the square root of that, we get 11.3. Let's see the Gemara's calculation. So kama have lehu, in this case, how big will this diagonal be? Chadsere vechumsha, 11 1/5. Okay, close enough. Now kuchin kama havu, each niche, how big is it? Temanya, 8. Okay, so we have 8 of this. Think of this line going from this corner to this corner, which is just 11 and change. Now take away 8 of that 11 has to be empty space for the niches. So that leaves just 3 and 1/5. Well, 3 1/5, that is for all of the walls. That's not sufficient. Actually, you need an amma between each one for the walls. And so you're going to actually need 16 along this. You see, if it's just straight, then you can fit it. But once it's diagonal, just think of this line here, which all of the graves pass through that line. And you can see that there is not 16. There is not enough room for the empty space and the walls. And so it will be impossible to fit. So sorry, but this lulav is a creative way of answering the question, but actually is not practical, right? Each one is 8, and you cannot fit 8 niches into 11 1/5. Therefore, we have to reject Rav Huna b'red Rav Yoshua's suggestion. Okay, so because of that, this proof for Rav Ashi actually is a good proof, because just like this has to be on multi-levels, so too we can say that the diagonals can be on multi-levels. However, there is one last possibility, that they can all be on the same level for Rabbi Shimon. We can borrow an answer that Rav Shisha, the son of Rav Idi, said, and regarding a similar question, that we're talking about newborns. And here also we can we can say that this this Mishnah is assuming the sad case of newborns that were a stillbirth or died while they were babies. And because they don't need such a big space, so you can make them smaller. So this would solve the diagonal problem. So these ones on the diagonal would be reserved for what unfortunately happened often were kids dying during infancy, in which case this could be just a small amount and would not overlap with the others. And so therefore it is actually possible to make that without making multi-levels. And so this is an entirely different way of explaining those diagonals. So it could be that there are multi-levels, or it could be that those are reserved for small niches. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ve'amen.